I hate
video games!
Sorry, that was a bit much. It's just so hard to come up with a strong hook to a video like this. Let me try again. I somewhat dislike some video games and their respective genres, which isn't that weird. We all have our favorites. I have a friend who straight up only plays AAA first-person shooters, and other friends who can only spare time for roguelike deck builders. Growing up, my best friend's father pledged himself to only play World of Warcraft, and for a while, I myself never ventured outside of Nintendo consoles. Video games, debatably, are an art form. I'm just kidding, they are absolutely an art form, and like any art form, there's a wide variety of them, ranging from broken messes to incredible masterpieces. This range is equivalent to action blockbuster popcorn flicks and artsy highbrow dramas. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with either of them. Both have their place. But once we find a game that resonates with us, we are likely to stick with others similar in gameplay, tone, and ultimately, genre. We like what we like. But I've learned through experience that broadening our horizons can be extremely rewarding. And we do that by playing games we're averse to. In my recent years of adult life, I've started to wade into unfamiliar waters as a result of trying to tackle my backlog. Like many of you, I'm sure, I own way too many games that I have never touched before. With the help of a gaming journal app, I've slowly started to take on that massive stack of games to the point where it's sort of become a game in and of itself for me. This has led me to abandon games that I thought I'd love and embracing games I thought I had no chance of sticking with. It's surprised me and changed my opinions, sometimes radically. And I think more people could benefit from this kind of experience. Trying new things may sound obvious, but when was the last time you truly did something outside of your routine? We tend to favor things we're familiar with. Just this past week, I was going to order Chinese food, and I looked through the entire menu before just ordering orange chicken, like I always do. But if I were to expand my palate, so to speak, I might just find a new favorite dish I had been missing out on for years. Games are the same way. So, my thesis here is to play video games you hate. And by that, I'm not saying to force yourself to trudge through a game that you are genuinely not enjoying. I'm saying to maybe consider playing a few games just outside of your comfort zone, because it might just surprise you, make you change your mind, or at the very least, help you view things a little differently. Here are the games that did that to me, and might just do it for you. Metroidvanias are ubiquitous these days, but for the longest time, they did not click with me. I had played part of Super Metroid and a little bit of Hollow Knight, and while both were very visually impressive, I abandoned both of them frustrated. I think the main reason for this was the whole idea of getting lost being part of the game design. I had hit the same dead ends multiple times, unsure of where I was supposed to go. I felt like I was wasting hours and hours of gameplay, even though realistically it was probably only 1 or 2, and that really put me off. I play games to relax, not bash my head against a wall. Those games were enough to scare me off the genre for good. So thank goodness my coworker listened to me rant about Metroidvanias long enough to recommend Ori and the Will of the Wisps to me. I don't remember exactly what he said about the game, but he clearly understood my woes enough to know what game could change my stance. It was also especially lucky the game happened to be on sale. So I grabbed it and gave it a go, and yeah, it changed everything. Let's start with the obvious. You want to talk games as art? Look at this game! The lead developers have mentioned that classic paintings look great forever, and that inspires them to make their games look as much like a painting as possible. And that approach seriously paid off. Vibrant colors, particle effects, tons of swaying foliage. Even on Switch, which is what I played it on, it looks as incredible today as it did 5+ years ago. and I have a feeling it'll look just as great 20 years from now, maybe even 100 years from now. It also boasts the best video game score of all time. Gareth Coker is my favorite video game composer. The work that he did on Minecraft, Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Immortals Phoenix Rising, and Halo Infinite are all spectacular. But Ori is something special. Cinematic. It's like he took on the challenge to make an animated movie score, carrying the cutscenes, but also filling the world with incredible melodies. Some of these tracks don't loop for quite a while. That's how amazingly detailed and moving they are. I didn't want to take too much of a tangent on this, but listen to Luma Pools and tell me it's not one of the most relaxing and beautiful video game tracks of all time. The game looks and sounds great. It plays amazingly too. I've played super pretty games that don't measure up gameplay-wise, or are stiff, or feel as if the budget prioritized the visuals. Ori isn't one of these. I've never played another platformer with better flow. Silky smooth movement, chaining one move into another, with really fun abilities that make you positively glide across the screen in glorious 60 FPS. Combat is pretty great too. They give you just enough abilities to let you build a style you like, without overwhelming you with too many options like some games I've played. It's like it took all the things I liked from Hollow Knight's combat, like the spectacle and badge modifiers, and got rid of the things I didn't like from that game, namely insane difficulty spikes, stiff movement, and long runbacks to bosses. But what about the Metroidvania elements I professed to despise? What made me actually change my mind about the genre itself? In terms of structure, Ori might be slightly more linear compared to other Vanias, but you still get the full experience of a large interconnected map, abilities that unlock new areas, and tons of secrets to find. There are some objectives that can be completed in any order, and each biome feels really distinct, usually with an accompanying new mechanic. The idea of having to unravel the map via exploration suddenly didn't feel daunting. It instead felt invigorating. I'm sure the fact that the game is more platforming focused than my previous Metroidvania experiences also helped me shift my paradigm, as I was more familiar with platforming than combat-focused titles at the time. As a matter of fact, adding platforming elements to other game genres seems to help me warm up to them more, as we'll talk more about later. In any case, the game was just so darn good that it single-handedly convinced me that this genre is actually one I really like. I never got too lost, it had a decent amount of challenge, and when I went off the beaten path to explore or get hidden collectibles, it was never too hard to get back to the main objective. Just an incredible, practically perfect piece of art. Now, it's not the most Metroidvania-y Metroidvania, but it is the one that got me to play more of them. And that's key. Playing a palatable game in a trepidating genre can really expand our horizons. My time with Ori fully prepared me to get excited for the announcement of Metroid Dread, and I was able to marathon through the entire 2D Metroid series, including AM2R, which is excellent, in preparation for Dread's release. And now, I consider myself a full-blown Metroid fan. It is straight up one of my favorite Nintendo series, and it's so validating to finally understand why people love playing these games. For me, it's the sense of empowerment. Getting new movement abilities to navigate through areas that were previously inaccessible is such a satisfying feeling. I've played games where you level up hundreds of times over the course of the game, and those don't come anywhere close to the sense of power creep, for lack of a better term, that you feel in these games. Getting more health packs and missile expansions and late game abilities that let you absolutely shred through enemies like they're nothing, it makes you feel godlike. And as for Hollow Knight, well, I still have problems with its unforgiving difficulty, but my newfound respect for Metroidvanias got me to try out, push through, and ultimately reach the credits for Hollow Knight Silksong. The The quicker movement and my newfound love of big interconnected maps made what would have been a no-go for me a must-play. The fact that I enjoyed it at all is a big deal to me. I was able to bask in its incredible visuals and world building, even while putting up with arduous bosses. And it's just one of lots of games I've played that I normally wouldn't have given a second thought about trying had it not been for Ori. It took me an embarrassingly long time to finally try the game preceding Will of the Wisps, Ori and the Blind Forest. It certainly shares some of the DNA of what made Wisps my favorite, and it is worth trying out, but it doesn't quite hit all the same highs for me personally. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a top 5 game for me. Impeccably paced, buttery smooth to play, and with visuals that will always stand the test of time. But even if it's not your cup of tea, here are some other Metroidvanias I recommend. Metroid Zero Mission is my favorite 2D Metroid game, in large part because it distills the Metroid formula into a really tight package. You're constantly getting new abilities, it can be finished in just a couple sittings, and it has a fun and unique epilogue. It's the greatest NES remake of all time, and it's not even a question. Give it a shot on NSO. Blade Chimera is relatively unknown, but my favorite take on an action-based Castlevania style of game. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk Osaka, and it boasts excellent pixel art. The combat is great, with a nice balance between ranged and melee, but what surprised me for a game like this is how much I got into the story. It's by-the-numbers dystopian fare, but it takes itself seriously enough and explores dark themes without being too grim about it, that I came away having really enjoyed it. Recommended on Switch or Steam. Maybe a more common sentiment than disliking Metroidvanias is being not an RPG guy, and I certainly fall into that bucket. I love my platformers and action-adventure games. Turn-based RPGs, particularly JRPGs, seem so slow and dull by comparison. Add in the fact that they're full of numbers and systems you have to learn, they're sometimes hundreds of hours long and they often require grinding. There is just no fun to be seen, at least to me. That isn't to say that I didn't dabble in a Mario RPG now and then. My favorite Nintendo game, for example, is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. By all accounts, it is classified as an RPG, but it doesn't really feel like one, you know? Honestly, in many ways, it kind of spoiled me on the genre because of how early I played it in my gaming childhood. It has small numbers, time-based attacks, and lots of colorful surprises that keep the campaign feeling really fresh and novel each chapter. Same goes for the Mario and Luigi series to a lesser extent. Fun, light games with time-based combat to make the turn-based battles more engaging, and a colorful exterior with minimal need to focus on stats and grinding. Those are a far cry from stat-heavy, slow, turn-based games, including the big-budget ones that feature pretty anime characters. So even with the more modern takes, like the Final Fantasy series, I've never even bothered trying them. Whenever a JRPG shows up in a Nintendo Direct, I usually turn my brain off. There was really no chance I'd even consider wasting my precious time on one, unless it were a solid indie game that modernizes the stuff I don't like and bridges in the stuff I do. So thank the stars for Sea of Stars. Much like retro-modern indie takes like Shovel Knight, Sea of Stars is a perfect blend of homaging JRPG classics while still including modern design sensibilities and quality of life improvements. The devs at Sabotage Studios pitched the game as a modern take on classics like Chrono Trigger, and from what I can tell, they've succeeded in every aspect. It's hard not to talk about any game without first talking about its presentation, so let's start there. Sea of Stars is pixel art perfection, with detailed sprite work that still feels like the SNES, while doing things that could never be performed on old hardware, such as a dynamic lighting system. I still don't understand how it works, but in this 2D game, objects cast shadows that shift and move and change color palette depending on the time of day, which you can change in real time. It's clever and impressive, and it probably took forever to figure out how to program it, so kudos to the computer wizards who figured that one out. The music is no slouch either. Eric W. Brown killed it in making chiptune music that feels 16-bit. And guest composer Yasunori Mitsuda's additional compositions really add to the feeling of nostalgia and authenticity. They thoroughly filled out the album. There's a catchy battle theme, bespoke boss themes, and town and world themes for each in-game location that do not repeat anywhere else. And then on top of that, almost every track has a night theme, and on top of that, almost every track has a pirate bardcore rendition of it that you can only hear in the town pubs or inns, which you're in and out of pretty quick, unless you play a game of wheels. Oh, yes, wheels. Oh, it doesn't make any sense at this point to spend time gushing about a minigame, but I am a real sucker for board games within games. And I love that a lot of recent games have really taken note of that lately. Wheels, which is underscored by those pirate versions of the music I mentioned, is a 1v1 game that takes one of my favorite dice mechanics found in Yahtzee and Dice Throne, and makes it into a little push-your-luck battler with swappable figurines you unlock as you progress through the world. It's simple, but addicting, and I never got tired of playing a game or two. Sorry about that. Let's cut back to what makes Sea of Stars great, and more specifically, what makes it a great JRPG. And I'll cut to the chase of what instantly won me over. Action commands. The thing I already love, and it's implemented beautifully here. The way it works in Sea of Stars is that every attack and spell each party member uses has a specific timing for you to learn. But if you miss the timing, the attack still lands. So timing it right is essentially bonus damage, incentivizing you to learn each character's different attacks. I love this, because in addition to leveling up and getting traditionally stronger with simple stat boosts and unlocking new spells, you as a player are also becoming more skilled at the game by mastering the timings. It really makes a big difference in being personally engaged with each encounter, instead of entering a command and waiting to see what happens, hoping that your attack stat is higher than your enemies. I also love that there's a lack of grinding needed to beat the game. Combat encounters take place in the overworld itself, no screen transition needed, which means each one is carefully planned out to be part of your journey. Moving around is also fast and fluid, a lot more generous than most grid-based games, which makes running, grappling, and solving overworld puzzles snappy and painless. In general, exploration, puzzle solving, and combat are all really well balanced, so you're never bored. It was also a cognitive load off of me to not have to worry too much about the stats. You still get to choose what bonus stats you boost when you level up, but it doesn't go any further than attack, defense, magic attack, magic defense, health, and MP. Likewise, the armor and accessories you acquire are kept pretty simple too, but still offer enough customization to buff your party members. That may make it sound like combat encounters are simple too, but that's not the case. Besides the action commands adding a layer of excitement, there's also a brilliant combat loop at play here. Like most JRPGs, you use MP to cast powerful spells. To replenish it, you can use MP restoring items, which, side note, there's a cooking system in the game, which is really fun. But unlike most JRPGs, in Sea of Stars, you can restore MP with normal attacks. So you can cast your spells, then hit with normal attacks to restore MP, which also create mana pickups that let you power up your spells and normal attacks, all the while building up a combo meter for big ultimates. Add to this the fact that you can cancel enemy spells by identifying locks that take specific damage types, and you have a well-rounded combat system that is easy to understand but has plenty of depth and strategy. Just solid. The story is criticized, but I actually really like it. From what I understand, most JRPGs stand the test of time based on their narrative, and I feel that some of the major set-piece moments and side stories you come across throughout Sea of Stars are super original. There aren't tons of insane twists or complex drama. It's just a good, effective adventure tale. And despite the deuteragonists being a little blank slatey, they address it in the free DLC and flesh out their characters a bit more. You gotta admit, they really made the game they wanted to, and I love it. Ironically, some of the only people who seem to dislike this game are fans of bigger, more complex RPGs. The ones with crunchy numbers, lots of customization and character builds. So while the game is perfect for me, someone who doesn't usually like RPGs, it may not win over people who are already knee-deep into the genre. To a general audience though, I wholeheartedly recommend this game, especially because it has something I've never seen before. It's an RPG that has couch co-op. You and up to 2 other people can each run around the world together, take turns in combat, and assist each other on the action commands. It's not perfect, of course. Just like other games, there has to be a lead player who the camera follows. But I think it's pretty special that they thought to implement a feature into a game that usually doesn't. I loved playing the game alone, but I also loved playing through it with a partner. In an alarmingly dangerous way, this game became something of a gateway for me, as I've now started trying out several RPGs that I normally wouldn't even glance at. Persona 3, 4, 5, Ni no Kuni, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, and I'm even starting to consider trying out beloved classics like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VII, or at least the remake for that one. I still don't identify as a JRPG lover, particularly the ones that require a lot to get into them. I will definitely opt for ones that have quality of life improvements. But I can safely say that I am not a hater anymore. I finally get why people call classic RPGs comfort food. Other RPGs I recommend. Bug Fables. I already sung Paper Mario's praises, so here's an indie that does an excellent job homaging and even improving upon that series' formula at a time when Nintendo wasn't. The art style takes a little getting used to, but it has that same satisfying low-number combat that I love, along with rewarding exploration and tons of really fun collectibles and side quests. It's cheap, it's fun, good stuff. Expedition 33. Surprise, surprise, yeah, I like this one too. And it also has action commands. I think it's still worth noting why I like it though. Each party member's mechanics in this game almost feels like they have their own little mini-game. One member of my party was someone I didn't really care for early on in my playthrough, until I discovered a way to max out her damage with a string of specific moves, and then she became my go-to for the rest of the game. It also doesn't hurt that E33 has a reasonably short length, and an insanely well-produced music score. Absolutely deserves the praise. Here's a quick one, and it might be cheating a bit because it didn't take me much convincing to enjoy Breath of the Wild. The Zelda formula was due for a shakeup, and Breath was a breath of fresh air. And don't worry, I will not use that pun again this video. No, I loved this game from the word go, or I guess the words Nintendo presents. And you probably don't need the full explanation why. It's been talked to death just about everywhere. I've loved every single Zelda game that's come out while I'm alive, and Breath of the Wild was no exception, especially because I had never played a game like it before. This was my first open world game, and because of that, I didn't realize what it did so differently from its contemporaries. I just loved how different it was to other Zelda games. No, this one changed my mind retroactively when I started to play other open world games. Horizon Zero Dawn and Ghost of Tsushima, while good games in their own rights, made me go, no. Breath of the Wild really did change things for the better, didn't it? For one, the map is not a sea of icons like every other open world game. Just a few names and the topography. I love that you're naturally drawn to explore. Lots of, what's that? While you're en route to some distant and visually distinct landmark. You're rewarded for curiosity, and the game has a decent variety of what I'll call planned activities, including the admittedly overdone enemy camps that other games have, but also shrines for little bursts of puzzle solving as you go. That's honestly something Zelda seriously adds to the action-adventure gaming pool that other games don't quite nail. Well-designed puzzles that break up the combat. Plus, its generous climbing system is still something of a major game changer that I don't think anyone else in this space has quite managed yet. It makes other open games feel extremely limited by comparison, even if they're exploration-focused too. And the physics and chemical interactions of objects in the world further adds to that feeling of openness, coming up with unique solutions to puzzles and wildly different approaches to combat. It's a game that encourages you to just mess around. And while I do love a good, solid linear game, there's something undeniably magical about picking a direction, heading there, and getting distracted, sometimes for hours on end. Again, I loved all of this at first because of how fresh it felt in the context of the series, but it's only now that I fully understand just how revolutionary it was for gaming in general. It's 100% earned its status as one of the greatest games of all time, and even if you don't like it or are sick of it, you can't ignore the impact that it's had. Other open-world games worth looking into: Ghost of Yotei. Truthfully, this game, while slightly more non-linear than Ghost of Tsushima, still follows the box-standard formula that other open-world action games follow. But it does have a few tricks up its sleeve to help it feel more open. Information about the main quests can be gathered in multiple ways as you explore, making it seem like you're always progressing no matter what direction you go. But the real reason I'm including it here as a recommendation is because I loved bounty hunting in this game. It's nothing groundbreaking. You take up a bounty, you learn clues about the general area the criminal's hiding in, and then you track them down. But lots of these lead to really unexpected twists and turns, and I was always extremely excited to see what the next one would bring. Honestly, I kinda wish Sucker Punch dropped the entire storyline from the game and instead just made you a lone Ronin warrior picking up bounties and upgrading your gear as you wander the land. That, to me, would be the perfect open-world samurai fantasy. But what we have here is still good. Little Gator Game. Almost the complete opposite tonally, Little Gator Game cranks childlike whimsy to the max. Just like Breath of the Wild being at its best when you're messing around with the world and the physics, Little Gator Game is all about playing around in a literal sense. There's not combat, unless you count knocking down little cardboard cutouts of monsters, and all of your tools and power-ups are straight-up toys. There's even an item to let you ragdoll all over the place. It's a lovely little experience, and it takes a lot of inspiration from the Zelda series and one other particular game, but more on that later. Nothing fills me with dread more than playing Soulslikes. And not in the good way. I did play Elden Ring sheerly due to FOMO, and I enjoyed exploring its world, but I hated the brutal difficulty these games are known for. I didn't beat it till years later, but I at least appreciated that since it was open world, I could venture elsewhere if I was facing a frustrating difficulty spike. This made it the one exception of me playing a Souls-like for more than an hour. My attempts to start Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro all resulted in me quitting almost immediately. Enter Another Crab's Treasure, an indie title advertising itself as a Soulslike, which does something no other Soulsy game had done yet: pair a dark, brutal world with a colorful, dare I say, SpongeBob-y aesthetic. That was enough to capture my attention, and I am so glad I ended up playing through it. There's more to the game than, haha, it's Dark Souls, but you're a crab. Though I will say, the tongue-in-cheek marketing was very fun, such as when they vowed to make the entire game one big poison swamp, everyone's favorite type of area from Souls games. The fact that they were self-aware enough about the genre genuinely gave me hope that they would choose to discard certain codified aspects of it. And that's what I'm getting at. While the combat itself is all about reading enemy movements and dodging at the right moment, etc., there are a lot of ideas that aren't seen anywhere else in this space. For example, in asking themselves, how would a hermit crab fight? The devs came up with an armor system where the shells you don each have a different durability and magical abilities. My favorites tended to be the ones that would let you spin dash forward, like the tennis ball or the coconut. But there are others with really cool attacks if you opt for doing a magic build. And just like my preference with JRPGs, I also really appreciated that they stripped the stats down to be really straightforward, only 4 total, instead of adding complex systems like weapon scaling. Because the shells have durability, you're constantly swapping them on the fly, which adds a super fun layer of improvisation. Perhaps the biggest departure from Souls games is the fact that Another Crab's Treasure is basically kinda sorta a 3D platformer. Yes, the combat is slow and deliberate, but the movement is way less restrictive, with jumping, hovering, well, technically swimming, climbing, and a grapple. Jumping on things always felt janky to me in FromSoft's games, so just being able to move a little more easily through the environment makes the exploration and the combat a lot more enjoyable. It also means that a lot of the game's areas can have lots of verticality as you're fighting your way through them, but also climbing up them. And there are some well-designed sections that take full advantage of this. So, I guess that means the solution, dear friends, to liking an unlikable genre is to mix one of your favorite genres with it. A little platforming mixed with Souls combat, I'm in. A little platforming mixed with a shooter, I'm in. I don't really like fighting games. Maybe we should try mixing platforming with those. Oh, Smash Bros. Yeah, it works. We've discovered the secret to video games. Should just end the video right here. I do fully have to admit that the accessibility of this game was also a seriously huge draw for me too. Soulslikes generally do not include difficulty sliders because they worry it would compromise the vision of how a game should be experienced. But this game is crystal clear about how they want you to experience it, and still let you change it if you want. I really cannot applaud them enough for that decision, and even better, they also have fun with it, like giving you an option where you have a gun and can one-shot everything. I didn't really use these options for my main playthrough, but knowing that they were there was honestly a relief as I played, as odd as that may sound. I talked a lot about how this game isn't like other Soulslikes, but I will say that one aspect that is very much in line with the genre is its depressing tone. Like other Souls games, Another Crab's Treasure takes place in a dying world. The only difference this time being that it's our world. It won't really fill you with good vibes. The game is funny and visually bright, but most of the characters are pretty cynical, and the ending is melancholy. If anything, the game just wants to make you think about it after playing it, and I can appreciate that. So, in summation, it's still very much a Souls-like, just one willing to be accessible, give the player freer movement, and have a colorful aesthetic, which was all enough for me to push through and find a lot to love about the experience. I see the appeal now. It's kind of fun to meet weird, messed up bosses, take time to have to learn how to best them, and when exploring the world, living through tense moments of trying to survive long enough until you finally see the next checkpoint. It's not the most polished game in the world, but with a fraction of the budget most AAA studios have, Aggro Crab was able to win me over when so many others weren't able to. Another Souls-like I recommend, No Rest for the Wicked. I'm biased because I love Moon Studios. They're the ones who made Ori and the Will of the Wisps. But No Rest for the Wicked legitimately does things differently enough that I'm willing to hit up the genre again. For one, it has an isometric perspective, which I personally think lends itself much better to reading enemy attacks to best know when to dodge. It's also got elements most Souls-likes forego, such as resource collecting, buying a house, seamless co-op multiplayer, take notes FromSoft, and even fishing. Combine that with the art and the music Moon Studios is known for, and we may just have an all-time classic on our hands. Mina the Hollower may not be a Souls-like, but it definitely takes inspiration from one. This Game Boy homaging action-adventure puts emphasis on the action, with a burrowing mechanic that functions like a dodge for you to weave in and out of enemy range while trying to land hits from one of 5 different weapons. I love this game because it models its combat and healing systems after titles like Bloodborne, but pulls from other game genres to create a nostalgic yet original, modern yet retro experience. Recommended on any current platform. I talked about how I hated Metroidvanias. I talked about how I hated RPGs. Do I hate roguelikes too? I had nothing against them when I found out what they were about 10 years ago when a friend, shout out to Mithril Zenith by the way, explained the concept using FTL, a game I quite enjoyed and still enjoy. To me, they're essentially a modern version of what arcade games used to be, doing runs that reset your progress when you fail. These days, that also usually means procedurally generated levels, modifiers to make each run feel unique, and unlockable content to also add some variety and progression. I do love me some deck builders, which are almost always roguelikes thanks to the popularity of Slay the Spire, but I can't say I've always been drawn to the genre otherwise. Not even sure genre is the right word here, because there are all kinds of genres that are also roguelikes. I bounced off of Dead Cells, I lost interest in Bollocks Pit, and I can't say I'm very excited when I see a really cool looking game's trailer that then at the end reveals that it's a roguelike instead of a bespoke adventure. But there is one exception that helped me understand which roguelikes I like compared to others, and it's a fairly easy game to guess: Hades. The initial reveal for this game didn't exactly pique my interest. The main character looked dark, violent, and brooding, and that didn't really appeal to me, but in retrospect, it is funny I interpreted him that way, as Zagreus ends up being one of the nicest protagonists out there. Now, what actually got me to try the game was an offhanded remark from a friend saying that the game had stellar voice acting, which I can absolutely admire as someone who works with voiceover professionals daily. He was right, by the way. Supergiant Games has a rich pedigree of lovely voice acting, all originating with Bastion's iconic narrator. And with that introduction, I was met with a game with absurdly good production values, amazing voice work, written dialogue, art, and visual effects. But what makes it a good roguelike? I think the key thing here is that the repetitive nature of the levels is core to the story, and it helps the player feel the way Zagreus is feeling, as he's constantly hitting the same obstacles, desperately trying to break out of the underworld, much like Sisyphus rolling his boulder up the mountain over and over again. Sisyphus is in this game, by the way. Great guy. Could really learn from his positive attitude. The point is, by making the repetition diegetic, it doesn't just feel like you're being punished for not being good enough. You're feeling Zagreus' frustration as he inevitably fails again and again. But he keeps picking himself up and going out anyway. And that frustrating feeling eventually turns into empowerment when he eventually does break out. Add to this the fact that whenever you die, you return to the House of Hades and get to do a bunch of stuff now. You get to see new dialogue from the other characters, turn in your fish for rewards, and spend your darkness on upgrades that'll help you progress more on future runs. I was especially grateful for this because it helped me feel like I was actually getting somewhere and getting stronger despite my failures. I was getting better as a player, but Zagreus was getting stronger too. All of this made me almost look forward to dying, as I had plenty to see and do, and I don't think I ever saw a line of repeated dialogue. Lots of roguelikes are meant to be played forever, but I really dig the ones that have a defined ending, and then let you play more afterwards if you wish. Hades, and Hades 2, which is also excellent, do this, letting me cap off my adventure and effectively treat it the way I treat other games and shelve it, satisfied with my time rather than falling off out of boredom. So, in a nutshell, by making the roguelike structure be a core part of the story itself, it makes the repetitive nature feel earned. Light progression, and especially having a solid defined ending, help me enjoy them in the same way I enjoy finite games elsewhere. Other roguelikes that do this: the Rogue Prince of Persia. Built on the bones of Dead Cells, an indie game that didn't quite click with me, is the Rogue Prince of Persia, an indie game that absolutely clicks with me. Just like any roguelike, you do multiple runs in this game, unlocking different weapons and buffs for future runs as you complete it. What's nice about this one, though, is that as a 2D side-scroller, it gives you a lot of freedom with the parkour mechanics, allowing you to glide through the levels at your own pace. The game also takes place in a closed time loop, giving you story reasons to do multiple runs. Beating the final boss, which is actually pretty doable fairly early on, is not enough. This is great, and the game has a nice, satisfying ending, allowing you to treat it like an adventure game with a beginning, middle, and end. But then still continue to do future runs if it's something you enjoy. basically takes what I like about Hades and applies it to a 2D action game. The soundtrack is also great, propelling you forward with traditional Persian instruments paired with trap beats. It's a good time. Cobalt Core. Unlike other deck builders that I feel have too much content and too high of a difficulty ceiling to keep you hooked, Cobalt Core actually has an ending, which I've established is important to me. So you can play through a set number of runs, and once you've beaten them all, you get a final cutscene, and then you can be done with the game if you want. Like Prince of Persia, it has a narrative reason, with the story also taking place within a time loop. It's a really lovely game that I already reviewed on this channel, FTL meets Slay the Spire, and it's basically perfect in execution. The tactical feeling of maneuvering your ship on a single axis to avoid enemy fire, collecting artifacts to pull off broken combos, and reading some really cute dialogue from the little goobers piloting your ship, it's just wonderful. But what about a roguelike deck builder that has no story to speak of whatsoever? Could that still win me over? I'll keep this one brief because everyone already knows how solid Balatro is. There's a gazillion roguelike deck builders out there, but Balatro seems to be the king of all of them. And it's honestly kinda really basic in terms of theme. You're just playing poker hands and trying to get your multiplier up high enough to clear the score. It's just numbers and score chasing when you get right down to it. I don't really like bare bones Arcadey games. They were originally designed on the principle of get the high score and burn as many quarters as possible, and that just doesn't sound fun these days. I'm not a number chaser. I need a little story. I need a health bar, or new dialogue after each run, or something. Abstract shapes and numbers are not enough for me. Balatro does not have a story. There's no reason why you are playing this poker-adjacent game. There's no win condition other than survive 8 rounds. There's no characters to speak of. You got Jimbo the Talking Joker card, but does that really count? All this game has is fun mechanics and cool, trippy vibes, and it still somehow works for me. I love this game. Everyone loves this game. It's just so good at what it does, it doesn't need anything else other than pure gameplay and a sick aesthetic. And I'm honestly surprised anything could do that for me. It's like it beat me into submission with pure design. So yeah, Balatro unequivocally earns a spot on this list. Here are some other Arcadey games that are great. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. In some ways, this game's strengths are almost the opposite of Balatro, in that instead of just numbers, you have an actual health bar and a story reason for playing runs of Tetris-y-like puzzle dungeons. It's still really excellent though. I love how much variety there is. There are so many characters to try out, which are different enough to make you rewire your brain and approach runs completely differently. Yacht Club makes good games, so don't let the fact that this is a spin-off scare you off. UFO 50. A collection of 50 NES-era style games, absurdly good for the value, and many of them have zero explanation of how to play them. You just have to try to learn them without any context. And it's kind of a magical experience your first time. You're sampling these 50 games and trying to find the ones that click with you, much like digging up an old box in your grandma's basement with an unknown game console and cartridges, setting it up and giving them a try. Not every game will land with you, but that's the point. The process of trying them out is fun in and of itself. And while the games are presented in an old school style, they don't hold back from really cool modern design sensibilities, mashing together genres, and coming up with wholly new, original games that I could have never dreamed up. Just a phenomenal achievement in the indie space. Okay, we got another top fiver on our hands here. There are only a handful of perfect games to me, Ori being one of them. SteamWorld Dig 2 is also one of them, and is also, ironically, a sequel that perfects the original in every way. I freaking love this game. You play as Dot, and you have a simple mission: find Rusty, the protagonist from the first game. You do this by digging downward. Eventually you unlock other biomes, but the core loop is the same. Dig lower, find treasure, return to the surface to sell that treasure and upgrade your gear, rinse and repeat, and occasionally find new abilities that let you traverse the world in new ways, Metroidvania style. The art is solid, and the world is interesting to learn about, but honestly, what draws me to this game is just that core gameplay loop. Dig for more treasure, which lets you buy items that lets you dig for more treasure more efficiently. I'm not into Minecraft or survival games that have big tech trees, but something about the way this game handles that process of dig, upgrade, dig some more, I find really addicting. You always feel rewarded as you go deeper, especially when you get cogs that modify your abilities in unique ways. So, how did this game challenge or change me? Well, as time has gone on, my attention span has gotten worse and worse. Probably has something to do with the current state of social media, prioritizing short bursts of doom scrolling, and my personal obsessive need to blow through my backlog and rank games one at a time at a breakneck pace. I like using GG as my gaming journal app, but I acknowledge it has made it harder for me to play games in a relaxed state. Ever since I started using it, it's made me find fun in getting through games quickly, one by one. Despite all of this though, despite my not stellar attention span and need to keep trying new things, SteamWorld Dig 2 changed me in that it's the first game of my adult life that I have replayed for multiple playthroughs. Replaying games is not something I used to care for. I have friends who love doing new game plus, but I just can't. I already played that game. Why would I replay it again? I feel really satisfied when I beat a game, and I barely ever revisit games that I've beaten. I did as a kid, but that was only when I owned a couple of them. As an adult, the closest thing I can think of is when I'm watching my wife play a game I already beat to see her reactions. Yet, somehow Dig 2 has this weird power over me. I'm not even sure why it's the one I keep replaying. It doesn't have the traditional aspects of replay value. There's no score chasing, it's not procedurally generated, there's no runs, and frankly, I don't think I even change my build that much on each playthrough. I quite literally just have too much fun that I want to play this game again and again and again. And now I'm kind of wanting to play on the 3DS version, which is a graphical downgrade, but it has the map on the lower screen, or maybe I could play my Steam copy on a retro-style handheld with Game Native. It's just too good. And it makes me look back at other games that I love to almost the same degree and wonder if, instead of buying new games, I should just replay some of my favorite ones. That's what I did as a kid, after all, more out of necessity and a lack of an allowance. But I think we could all stand to benefit from enjoying the things we already own, instead of constantly buying new things. In fact, I kind of want to make a backlog of just games I want to replay. Is that weird? I don't think that's weird. Even typing this all out now, I'm suddenly itching to get back into it. I want to boot up a new save and start digging. Thunderful, please keep the SteamWorld team around. They really know how to make stellar games. If I could virtually fall on my knees and beg for a Dig 3, I would do so in a heartbeat. Other great games for replaying include SteamWorld Heist 2, another game I reviewed on this channel. As I said, all of the SteamWorld games are really high quality, and with this one they've honestly perfected the 2D turn-based strategy shooter. Think XCOM, but in 2D, where you have to carefully line up and ricochet your shots. It plays great. There's plenty of crunchy mechanics and builds to experiment with, all wrapped together with really great music and a seafaring adventure as a backdrop. It's wonderful. The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Every Zelda game is worth replaying at least once, but I think this one is especially fun to revisit as its echo system encourages experimentation. The way you approach combat can be different every time you play, and the world's semi-non-linear design lets you accomplish objectives in different orders. It has some of that openness from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but pared down to not feel overwhelming. And the game is still purposefully crafted with its overworld and dungeons, but has just enough variety and an improv-y feel to the combat to make it exciting on subsequent playthroughs. It's weird to call a mainline Zelda game an underrated gem, but I think this one flew under a lot of people's radars, and I highly recommend checking it out. Going back to genres, there's one that I could never be convinced to like. And I'm not just talking video games here. This goes for movies and books and experience-based media too. I don't like horror.
Horror! 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 Horror!
At least, I didn't think I liked horror. And when I share that, people immediately say, oh, so you don't like being scared. But no, that's not it. It's the violence. For me, for the longest time, the word horror was synonymous with grotesquerie and extreme violence and blood and gore and all that icky stuff I can't stand. And so far, nothing has made me back down from that stance. I'm someone who believes that dark themes can be explored without explicit imagery, and extreme violence in media does more harm than good to our cultural zeitgeist. So what has helped me overcome this aversion to the horror genre and realize that I do like it is when I finally played horror games that are largely absent of those things, but still deliver a spooky, spine-chilling experience. It might be cheating a bit, but I'm gonna list more than one game for this category, and I'll explain why in a moment. First, we have Limbo, an iconic indie masterpiece, short and sweet and poignant and very dark and mysterious. Its striking art style still holds up and was probably the reason for its success. It's a horror platformer with clever puzzles, and it's just dripping with atmosphere. There are some violent-ish moments when you die, but these are pretty cartoony and very tame compared to other games. Limbo is a silent, creepy game, and it's worth playing at least once, if not a few times. And its follow-up, Inside, deserves the same praise. It's also a 2D side-scroller, but never feels like it, due to the depth of its 3D environments. Like Limbo, there's no dialogue. Inside tells a wordless, haunting story through gameplay alone. As there's no one to guide you, you have to experiment with trial and error to figure out how to continue exploring through the world. And as you do, what you see around you helps you very slowly piece together what is happening in this dark world you know little about. The design is brilliant. The ending sequence is unexpected, and it's a fantastic example of games as art. Now, perhaps these games aren't true blue horror in the same way that a survival horror game like Silent Hill or Resident Evil is, but I needed to mention both, because it was upon their shoulders that another franchise was conceived that fully won me over on horror: Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares and its sequels take what Limbo and Inside did, expand the dimensions just a little, and focus in on scary scenarios to deliver what I would call the equivalent of a Tim Burton film. Creepy, just a little weird, and without an overabundance of violence and gore. In these games, you play as a little child exploring a dark and messed up world called the Maw. Like Inside, you have to infer a lot to understand what's happening, but I personally found the vibe itself to be the most intriguing part. What is this place? The games also have a simple structure: platform and do puzzles. 2 introduces a little bit of combat, which gives you more to do, but I think the games succeed most on the balance they strike between their quiet moments of exploring and big, scary set pieces. In between areas, the world you traverse is just drenched in a somber, eerie feeling. This is helped by the terrific art direction and, of course, sound design. Despite being in third person, there always feels like something is just out of sight, watching you. And as a small child, you feel quite imperiled, powerless, and vulnerable once you start to see some of the weird monstrosities. Each game has some big moments and chase sequences where you narrowly escape from something 10 times bigger than you and 100 times creepier looking, adding a little bit of climax to all the building suspense that accumulates during the quieter parts. It's terrifying, and I love it. It's like you, the player, are walking through an interactive haunted house. You never know what's waiting when you turn a corner or open a door. And whenever you do get caught or die, the violence is more implied than anything else. The game's likely got a T rating because they don't depict shocking deaths. But I don't think that takes away from the dread and the scariness on display here. If anything, it enhances it. And this approach they took really helped me come to terms with the fact that horror can be a lot of fun. I changed my mind after playing these games. I actually like horror. I like spooky, scary bumps in the night. I want to drink that eerie atmosphere right up. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't take a chance on something I fiercely identified as hating. Since playing through this series, I'm trying out more horror games, particularly low-poly ones that focus less on the grossness of the genre and more on the creepiness, and who knows, I might even watch a scary movie someday. I'm just now realizing as I write this that the games I mention on this list are all technically horror platformers. Apparently, it really is the secret to converting me. One final recommendation I have for horror games is Crow Country. I gave this one a go not only because I was encouraged by the T rating, but also because I love SFB games. They made snipper clips on the Switch, and a series of detective games I really dig called Detective Grimoire. Tingle Tower is probably the most recognizable one in the series, but they're all great. And so is Crow Country. This is one of those low-poly horror games that we're seeing a renaissance of these days. You play as Mara Forrest, a girl on a mission not immediately apparent to the player, as she explores an abandoned amusement park. It's one of those games where you slowly unlock the map by finding keys and codes to use elsewhere, and you've got limited ammo and have to decide whether to run from the zombie-like enemies or stop and aim your shots. It's also strangely cozy? Not sure why. It might be the funny dialogue or the little isometric diorama-styled world, but I really like playing this game in October. Don't get me wrong, it is a survival horror game with limited resources and even a couple jump scares, but it somehow feels so much more accessible to me. Plus, if you don't want any combat at all but still want to see the great puzzle design of this game, there's a mode for that. A very easy recommendation for people intrigued by survival horror but don't want the stressfulness. It won't surprise anyone who knows me to find A Short Hike on any list I make. It is straight up my favorite game of all time. I've sung its praises on here countless times, so you'll need to bear with me as I do so again. You play as Claire, a bird trying to find cell phone reception on a tiny island, who sets off to reach the top of Hawk Peak to do so. There's lots of things to collect, like coins and hats and treasure maps, but the main collectible is the golden feathers, which act as both your stamina meter for climbing and also your double jump, each feather allowing you to flap in the air a little more. So it's a simple but effective loop as you explore non-linearly. You explore to collect feathers, and collect feathers to explore even more. You can focus on the main objective, or participate in little side activities such as parkour races, fishing, motorboating, beach stickball, and a bunch of other little side quests. The writing is absolutely delightful, and there are some lines that I still quote to this day in regular conversation, such as, "Dang, you ever had a pancake?" I make all my gaming friends play it at least once, and even most of my non-gaming friends too, including my in-laws. I've played through it tons of times on at least 3 different consoles. I've played it with just a D-pad. I've played it with a multiplayer mod. I've sped run it. I've beaten it with one feather. I've even played it blindfolded once for fun. I don't recommend playing it that way, but I just want to emphasize how much I love this game. I have over 50 hours logged into this game, okay? It's fun, it's funny, it's fulfilling. Go play it if you have not yet. So there's a lot of reasons to love this game. But we've already established that I like exploration and platforming games. The way this game changed my position on something has little to do with its quality. It has to do with the length. As the name implies, A Short Hike is short, certainly shorter than I expected in my first playthrough. I'm now at a point in my life that time is limited and precious. In fact, I'm at a point where when a game or someone reviewing it announces that it's got hundreds of hours of content, it's a major turnoff for me. I still play some long games and I do enjoy them, but I'm far more likely to try a condensed, short but sweet kind of experience that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's why I keep gravitating toward indies every year, despite the wealth of big, polished experiences out there. A Short Hike was what convinced me of this, and ironically, my total hours count is higher than a lot of games I'd consider too long. but I keep coming back to it because of how lovely and compact it is. You can play as much or as little as you want and still have a good time. I am a missionary who sings the praises of a short hike, but I also preach the gospel of short games to anyone who will listen. I know some people are particular about making sure a game has a good money to content ratio, but I honestly think a game's worth isn't determined by that. If anything, long or short, the pacing matters a lot more. And don't even get me started on live service multiplayer games that require you to treat them like a part-time job to fully enjoy. But then again, who knows? Maybe that'll be the next type of game I change my mind about. These are some of the games I was averse to, that challenged my views, and changed my mind in some way. My goal in sharing all of this is to convince more people to play more games that you otherwise wouldn't. There's a whole sea of games that are fun, but don't impact us very much. But by going out of our comfort zone, even just a little bit, we find gems we'd never consider. For me, I'm grateful that this hobby continues to surprise and delight me in unexpected ways. But that's enough from me for one day, I think. Tell me what games and genres you used to hate and ultimately ended up coming around on. I'm not asking for engagement, I truly, genuinely want to know. Especially if it leads me to yet another game that changes me in some way. Thanks for listening. I look forward to leveling with you again sometime.